Tonight's big stories. In commemoration of the country's 126th Independence Day, President Marcos called on Filipinos not to succumb to oppression. He also hosted a reception at Malacanang, which was attended by Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian.
But over at the West Philippine Sea, tensions remain high. The Armed Forces of the Philippines says that for the first time, China held maritime drills within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
And Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro says that POGOs have become a national security concern as authorities find bullets and more military uniforms over at the South 99 POGO hub in Pampanga.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina.
I'm Gretchen.
And I'm Shawn.
On the commemoration of the 126th Philippine Independence Day, President Marcos delivered a strong message. Filipinos will never succumb to oppression.
He led the ceremonial rites over at the Rizal Park before proceeding to Malacanang for the traditional Vent d'honneur. That reception was attended by the diplomatic corps, including, yes, Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian.
In fact, Ambassador Wang also showed up to the flag raising at Rizal Park. But one person who was conspicuously missing at the activities was Vice President Sara Duterte. Maricel Halili with the big story tonight.
Accompanied by the First Family, President Bongbong Marcos kicked off the 126th Independence Day with a visit to the Jose Rizal Monument in Manila. Marcos likewise led the raising of the Philippine flag and the singing of Lupang Hinirang. The controversial Bagong Pilipinas hymn and pledge were also recited. Shortly after, Marcos laid a wreath at the Rizal's monument. Present at the flag-raising ceremony were the members of the diplomatic corps, including Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, but he evaded the media. From Luneta, President Marcos proceeded directly to Malacanang for the traditional Vent d'honneur, or Wine of Honor, which was attended by cabinet members and members of the diplomatic corps. Noticeably missing was Vice President Sara Duterte, who led the Independence Day celebrations in Davao City. In Malacanang, President Marcos and Ambassador Wang Xilian exchanged pleasantries upon arriving, though it is not clear what they discussed. Amid rising geopolitical tensions, Papal Nuncio Charles Shawn Brown talked about using the strategies implemented in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao for achieving peace in the whole region.
And that is the path of dialogue, patient, serious dialogue, together with a respect for international law and a respect for legitimate diversity. Engaging with others, and particularly those with whom we profoundly disagree, is the surest way of avoiding the catastrophe of escalation.
In his speech, President Marcos mentioned the rule of law and the importance of abiding by the UN Charter.
We may carry on our sacrosanct mandate to protect our country and to defend everything that is rightly ours from those who will try to cross these lines. On the global stage, we have taken positions in support of the rule of law and of the rules-based international order, grounded on the principles laid out in the UN Charter.
In a separate video message, the president also said Filipinos should not succumb to oppression.
At bilang tagapagmana ng kalayaan na tinatamasa natin ngayon, tungkulin ng bawat isa sa atin na pangalagaan ito at tiyaking hindi na tayo kailanman magpapatinag sa anumang banta ng pananakop at pag-aapi.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Before we move on to other stories, I wanted to take a second to extract the video of Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, and the reception that he got at Malacanang. If we could just play that video again. What we noticed was that Ambassador Wang got a very warm welcome from President Marcos and First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos at Malacanang. I mean, you can you can see it, right? They're warmly greeting each other, exchanging pleasantries. They're shaking hands, both
just
hands.
one hand, yeah, two hands.
Both hands, right? Kind of like greeting an old friend. There's no stiffness in the body language at all.
Well, actually, just a few days ago, or was it last week, I was on social media and I actually saw that Ambassador Huang Xilian was also present at the Likha event. The Likha event is hosted by the First Lady, Liza Araneta Marcos. It happens at the PICC, and it's where all the weavers and designers from all over the Philippines converge. I think the point of the First Lady was to gather all these craftsmen to help them gain access to different markets for export, which is why the diplomatic corps was invited. And at that same event, Ambassador Huang was also seen greeting the First Lady.
Yeah. And I guess all of this is surprising because, I mean, last we heard he or the Deputy Chief of Mission,
Ji-yong.
Joe Ji-yong, was summoned to Malacanang over the latest water cannoning incident, which happened just a month ago on May 2.
That was the time when people were talking about, we have to kick out these diplomats. And those
That's
were
Actually,
right.
I have a record of that. I mean, there have been several calls to expel Ambassador
Correct.
Huang Xilian back in December after the water cannoning incident. I think also back in August of last year.
The first water cannoning.
But
That's right.
the president has said there are no moves to expel the Chinese ambassador.
And
So-
and this event, was the first time that we've seen them publicly in the same
Correct.
place, greeting each other. And so
It's surprising that everything looked above board, everything looked smooth, fine, and non-tense.
and it's curious to me in particular why, typically when a country summons the envoy of another country, it's the ambassador or the highest official. Last time, again on May 2, they summoned the Deputy Chief of Mission, so not Ambassador Huang Xilian. I don't know if that's because he's ending his tour of duty or there could be something else that they worked out behind the scenes. But again, this is very interesting to see.
They had
that
a change
it's
also.
very-
I recall with their defense minister back in China, right? In the Singapore summit.
Yes, so
It was
nagbalasahan
a
basically.
new defense minister.
And
fronting.
the other reason it's curious to me was because remember that the public Facebook page of Ambassador Wang for a time was also reposting the very inflammatory messages
Yes.
of the spokesperson of China, right, in regards to
That's a good
Ayungin
sign.
or Sabina.
We hope that it does
Sergio.
translate
Yes,
to
yes, it is.
bilateral talks and the sea.
Or it could be, Huang Xilian is a diplomat. He is an ambassador.
true.
He
Everyone
is
is
in
a
Malacanang.
yeah.
He's gonna be on his best
Alam
behavior.
naman natin yan. Pag Chinese, very professional.
Diba?
Don't forget-
Nakakahiya kasi save
totoo
face,
naman.
di ba? Bawal mapahiya.
But again, it's could be a good indication because it's
good
very
because
warm,
this is
cordial.
Independence Day
Yes.
of the
Yes.
Philippines for the ambassador to attend and show respect to the president.
And no less that
It's a
5
huge
days
step.
ago,
June
June 7
7th.
was the 49th anniversary of Philippine-China relations, or diplomatic ties actually, between the Philippines and China. So it seems, at least for this week, everything's
It was very,
very great.
no, it's been quite eventful, right? So not a lot of people know that 49th anniversary of Philippines, China and diplomatic ties.
Well, as Gretchen was saying, Independence Day was also celebrated over in the West Philippine Sea. A ceremonial flag raising was held at the BRP Teresa Magbanua, which is stationed along the Sabina Shoal. This is the first ever flag raising ceremony there, and all along there were some 8 Chinese vessels monitoring the area. The Armed Forces of the Philippines has reported more Chinese vessels inside the country's exclusive economic zone, and also for the first time, they are now conducting drills there. The Philippine Navy said some 22 Chinese Navy ships, 16 Chinese Coast Guard vessels, and more than 100 Chinese militia ships were spotted in the West Philippine Sea just last week.
Illegal. Kapag yung presensya nila, ay dapat wala sila sa loob ng ating exclusive economic zone. Ayon sa UNCLOS, ang mga warships na dumadaan, they could exercise the right of innocent passage. Ibig sabihin, dadaan ka lamang tuloy-tuloy sa pinakamabilis na speed para makarating ka sa destination mo. Pinagbabawa ng UNCLOS ang panggat ng anumang activity na mag-undermine ng security ng coastal states.
Commodore Trinidad said the drills only involve aircraft launches and maneuvers and that there were no live fire exercises. Still, he said they will intensify maritime patrols together with concerned civilian agencies.
Nagkaroon ng internal adjustment ng Philippine Navy to allow us to project more ships sa ating EEZ. This will allow us more patrols and longer durations. Pati ang Coast Guard, and in fact, pati ang BFAN. Ang kailangan sa West Philippine Sea is more government presence.
Well, this is coming off of the president's remarks that an external threat is becoming more pronounced, and it is worrisome. He said that in upon meeting soldiers in the 5th Infantry Division in Gamu, Isabela. And he told the soldiers to prepare themselves, especially the northern part of the Philippines, for the situation over in Taiwan.
Joining us tonight to talk more about this, we have with us International Development and Security Cooperation President Chester Cabalza joining us via Zoom. Good evening, Chester. Thanks for taking time out of your holiday to talk to us.
Yes, first of all, happy Independence Day. Good evening, Miss Regina, Miss Gretchen, Miss Shawn. Thanks for having me in your program.
Happy Independence Day as well to you.
Chester, as we just reported, the Armed Forces of the Philippines said that the Chinese vessels conducted military drills within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone for the first time as far as they're concerned. Is there an alternate universe here where it could be argued that China was doing this as part of their right to freedom of navigation?
Not so much on the right to freedom of navigation, but they're testing the waters. Because by next week, hopefully we will be seeing how China will behave by enforcing their law to foreign fishers. And I think that is something that we have to look at. And I think they're also testing the waters on how the Philippines would react. And if their intent is to elevate the principle of freedom of navigation and overflight, then might as well they have to recognize the 2016 arbitral award. The mere fact that they are not yet recognizing that, and they said that it's just a piece of paper, then I doubt that their intent is to, of course, do it in good faith to elevate the freedom of navigation principle.
But if that's the case, Chester, then doesn't that mean that they're actually exercising their right in their exclusive economic zone or the territories that they're claiming? Because I think the 9-dash line does go over that part. So is that how they could be seeing this?
Remember, they changed already the illustration. It's no longer 9-dash line because 9-dash line was invalidated in the 2016 arbitral award.
Correct.
Now they have redrawn it and they called it 10-dash line. That's why India, Southeast Asian claimant countries, including Taiwan, resisted the new map that the communist, the Chinese Communist Party has redrawn. And I think the problem here is not about the freedom of navigation principle or the new illustration, but how they respect the international law and how they would be obligated to become responsible regional power by respecting the rules-based norms and the arbitral award that the Philippines has won. Today we are celebrating the Independence Day of the Philippines. Hopefully China will reconsider that opportunity that they are part of the UNCLOS, and as member of the UNCLOS, they have to recognize the 2016 arbitral award.
Chester, is this part of the gray zone tactics of China, or is there something clear in the law of the sea that says something about military activities being conducted in exclusive economic zones? I mean, what can we do here? I'm sure if they did it the first time, it isn't the last that we're probably going to see these military activities.
Probably it's still part of the gray zone strategy because they have not pronounce and announce these kinds of activities if they are if they have that good faith to tell to the Philippines that we will cross the exclusive economic zone, then they have at least said it to the Philippines. The mere fact that they did that without the consent coming from the Philippines, it means that they are testing the waters. At the same time, although it's not written, I think more than the freedom of navigation, I think there is the innocent passage that was included in the UNCLOS provision. The mere fact that there was no innocent passage that was done, because I think their intent is to just navigate and sail around the exclusive economic zone, then I think there is a loss of translation on how they would appeal in their language. There was no communications between the Philippines and China about this. So we are just reinterpreting what is happening right now.
Chester, may I ask how you would like the Philippines to take this and what kind of response the Philippines you would like to see make?
Well, I mean, especially if you say
Okay.
that, especially if you say that they're testing the water. So, did we pass or fail? Right? What message are we sending to China by not doing anything?
Well, of course, if that's their intent, then they should have called for a high-level bilateral talk. At least our presidents should be talking, or else the representatives coming from the foreign affairs, high-level diplomats, they should be talking on the key salient points on how to respect maritime rules-based norms and how to respect the exclusive economic zones of each party, of each countries. That is something that we are waiting from China. We have explored bilateralism in the past, during the past administration, but we saw failed rapprochements diplomatically and economically. This time around, because of the high tensions that is happening in the West Philippine Sea, we are hoping for bilateralism courtesy of China, because right now we have been exploring multilateralism and minilateralism, which we have not yet seen a very good resolution on the peaceful resolution in the South China Sea. If China would want to have bilateralism with the Philippines, then at least they could have considered that, and that they should have offered it to the Philippine government, that we wanted to talk and we're ready to talk, or if they are more sincere, let's talk in Manila. So I think that is something that we've been waiting for them. Otherwise, we are just prejudging them based from their behaviors, based from the regression tactics, and at the same time, there are no clear provisions on how this conundrum in the West Philippine Sea should be resolved amicably between the Philippines and China.
Pwede ba itong i-protesta, the military activities? Because they also held exercises near Taiwan. This is reminiscent of that. Should we not overreact, or should we do something about it? What's your take on that?
If it's outside the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, ay karapatan naman nila yan. That's the right, no? They've been doing that with Cambodia. Remember, during the previous Balikatan exercises, the biggest so far with 14 observer countries and 4 possible countries that wanted to have visiting forces agreement with us through the US, Australia, and then of course you have Japan and France third. They also did military exercises around Taiwan and near West Philippine Sea, and also in Cambodia. I think that's the right. But of course, they're trying to conquer the might of our allies and partners. That is their sovereign right at the same time, as long as they don't intrude in our internal waters.
This is actually within the EEZ. They conducted the exercises around the Skoda Shoal. That's 71 nautical miles from Palawan. So, medyo talagang pasok na pasok
Yun
sa
yun ang
EEZ
medyo
natin.
nakakatakot, because Skoda is very near the mainland Palawan, no? That archipelago there. And also in Escoda, that's close to Ayungin Shoal and to Mischief Reef. And above that, you have also Reed Bank. So I think that's very crucial in a sense that it's a red flag when you talk about national security in the West Philippine Sea. Because as of the moment, the Philippines still is claiming the Escoda Shoal, including the Ayungin Shoal, although the Mischief Reef, China has already militarized it. And then, of course, Reed Bank is contested. And we know for a fact that Reed Bank, based from the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, that's part of our maritime territory.
Right, that's just
As far as you know, are there high-level talks going on to discuss the this new regulation that you mentioned, which, as we all know, is that rule that China unilaterally imposed, which says that they can detain what they call trespassers in the disputed waters, and this rule kicks in actually in 3 days on June 15.
Yeah.
They can not only arrest these trespassers but also detain them for up to 60 days. So do you think, as far as you've heard, are there high-level talks going on to discuss this issue?
I don't know if there are high-level talks, but I'm sure lately I've been interviewed about the upcoming RIMPAC. I was also asked by former students, senior students from Coast Guard and the Navy about the implication of this one in case that China enforces it.
Really?
And they would jump to Philippine vessels. What would be the reaction of Filipino Coast Guardians and the Navy? I was like telling them, as long as they are not carrying any guns or arms, then you talk to them. If they carry guns and they would intimidate you, that is something that we have to discuss because that is against international laws. And of course, that is something that is not acceptable in the regime of islands because you are carrying guns there. If their intent is to enforce their law, then let's try to negotiate, be diplomatic, and let's elevate it to high-level talks.
Right.
Those were my suggestions to them.
Chester, related to what Regina just asked, I wanted to also go
Yeah.
back to what you said earlier about China should be the one to initiate these high-level talks. Is there any specific reason why China should initiate it, or can we also initiate it?
You know, the reason why I've been telling that it should be China who should initiate this bilateral talk, because remember, in the past administration, we have exhausted our efforts bilaterally with China. We have talked to them, and China has promised a lot of things to us. Examples would be the hotline, the diplomacy, the Coast Guard diplomacy, and some other unfulfilled pacts with the Philippines. And the Philippines receive it warmly. But if it comes from China, we are studying the gestures and sincerity of China. If it is an offer coming from Beijing, then that means that they are sincere in talking with us and they have some recommendations on how to resolve this problem. Because right now we have exhausted so much. We've used bilateral, multilateral, and minilateral approaches. These are poly-domain and multi-approaches already on how to resolve this issue amicably with China. But it seems like we have not found yet the best formula on how to temper China. If it comes from Beijing, that means that they have better solutions and better innovative policies on how to resolve this issue.
Well, talking about gestures, the Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang
You're
Xilian,
just about to
was in Malacanang today. Nakita niyo po ba yung video? Ano pong basa niyo?
We were just running it whilst you were talking.
Good sign ba yun? O ano to? Parang
Well, it's
diplomat
Independence
lang.
Day, so there's a special occasion. There's a special occasion. That's the reason why the gesture is so warm and welcoming. But sometimes, ang nakikita kasi natin minsan iba yung kilos, iba yung salita, no? Or minsan ang nangyayari, iba yung sinasabi nila, iba rin yung kinikilos sa baba sa West Philippine Sea. So I hope that the keyword I think here is consistency. Na kung ano yung sasabihin nila, ano yung kilos nila, sana yun na there should be consistency in the gestures, language, and of course nuances.
And in the
As analysts and for policymakers, those are very important. We are looking at the consistency of their behaviors, actions, and languages.
parang sa manliligaw lang, no, Chester? Pero
But,
since
but
wala nga...
he says it's a good sign.
Yeah, pero...
Parang,
di ba, sa
siyempre,
manliligaw... Oo, ganun naman tayo.
nagpapapogi rin sila kasi nga sunod-sunod din yung yung pambabatikos sa kanila if we try to connect the dots, no? After the West Philippine Sea, we saw the alleged influx of Chinese students, tapos yung sa POGO problem, and then of course yung mga local leaders natin that were so-called spies. So, ang dami nilang pinagdadaanan ngayon. And we wanted that the Philippines-China relations, no, will become closer. Ayaw naman natin ng gulo o giyera. All we want, of course, is to resolve this amicably, no, because this is a complex issue, no. Let's not look it in a one-sided perspective.
Right.
Remember, our problem only with China is our strategic relations with them. No, let's not equate politics and strategic relations to economics.
Right.
Those are two different things. No, ang dapat ayusin natin ngayon is yung warm relations of China and the Philippines, even if the reasons why they perhaps dislike us because of our closeness with the United States, because of our alliance with the US, dapat tanggapin ni China yun na part ng kasaysayan natin yun, parte yun ng ating
Right.
lifeblood as a nation state. At the same time, they have to fulfill their promises also with the Philippines. The reason why they are doing the military exercises there and then showing some warm acquaintations with the Philippines, I hope that one day they will also realize that as a member of the UNCLOS, they have to recognize the arbitral award.
Right.
It's good that he's challenging them to go back to the table, right? Maybe it's a good time.
Yeah, and might also point out that he didn't just show up to Malacanang today. He also showed up at the ceremonies at Rizal Park. I'm talking about Ambassador Huang. He also showed up at the Rizal Park ceremonies earlier in the day. So maybe there is more of an effort from their side. We're going to have to leave that there, though, for tonight. Thank you so much again for making time for us. Chester Cabaza, President of the International Development and Security Cooperation.
Maraming salamat po.
As mentioned, Vice President Sara Duterte was not at Luneta with President Marcos today. Instead, she flew back to Davao City. There, she also led the flag-raising ceremony and the wreath-laying at Rizal's monument. In her speech, the Vice President said Filipinos should remember the sacrifices of their forefathers. She also called on Filipinos, especially the youth, to uphold the values of patriotism and democracy.
Independence Day, we do not only celebrate our liberation, but also place emphasis on the importance of remembering the adversities we have overcome and the ideals we fight for.
In a separate statement, Duterte said Independence Day is a reminder for Filipinos to remain united to make the nation peaceful and prosperous. But while the Vice President called for unity, the question is our very own uniteam tandem with President Marcos still intact, given the very public feuding between the two families? Duterte was asked this today, and here is her response.
Unity was the tandem during the 2022 elections, and then tandem of Bongbong Sara during the 2022 elections, and then umanang elections nilaog na ni. And nagpasalamat din sa ato ang mga kaigsuunan sa ating mga kababayan sa kanilang suporta sa tandem noong 2022.
Up next, lawmakers call for an outright ban on POGOs in the Philippines, but PAGCOR says that could cause bigger problems. We'll be speaking with Jun Alano, Assistant Vice President at PAGCOR, when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're watching the big story here in One News.
Defense Chief Gibo Teodoro says the POGOs have become a national security concern. Just today, bullets and a new set of Chinese military uniforms were discovered by authorities in the South 99 POGO hub that they raided in Pampanga. Regina with the story.
A new set of Chinese military uniforms were found by authorities on the 6th day of their search operations in the South 99 POGO hub in Porac, Pampanga. There were also combat boots found, as well as a military badge.
Alam kung ito ba talaga katotohanan na ginagamit o binili lang kung saan o ginagamit lang sa cosplay o whatever. But we are not proving na ginagamit na ito agad dito.
On Monday and Tuesday, at least 6 sets of alleged Chinese military uniforms were discovered by authorities in the raided hub. The News 5 team showed photos of the uniforms to military expert Jose Custodio, and he said that these appear legitimate, but warned against jumping to conclusions.
They may be authentic Chinese uniforms, but doesn't necessarily prove anything. Kasi it could be said that, baka isa sa mga to military enthusiast, baka isa sa mga ito nagka-cosplay, o baka isa sa mga to nag-airsoft.
The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission, or PAOC, suspects that this may have been used by what they call the torture enforcers. Recall that there were also torture equipment discovered in the POGO hub, where about 160 foreign nationals were rescued.
Kasi yan ang isa sa mga katangian. Pero ng mga enforcer, kailangan na may ex-military ka o kaya dati kang nasa serbisyo. Yun ang kinukuha nila mga taga-torture minsan o kaya yung taga-kidnap o kaya yung taga-gawa ng mga krimen para sa kanila.
The News 5 team also reports in an exclusive that PAOC found 25 bullets in Building 3 of the Lucky South 99 POGO hub. The PAOC is now looking into whether there were killings inside the compound. This as they also found photos of dead bodies in the cell phone of the alleged Chinese POGO torturer Wu Lifeng. PAOC confirms that they are now monitoring other POGOs in southern Metro Manila as well as Cavite. In response, Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla said he is open to an investigation. Remulla says there are 2 POGO hubs in Cavite, one in Bacoor City, which has been closed for a long time, and the other, which was built on land owned by the Remullas themselves.
We sold it 2018. Our family is totally divorced from any transactions after 2018. Wala na kaming kinalaman dyan. We didn't interfere with any of the permits. Hindi kami kasama sa implementation. Hindi kami kasama sa clearances.
Remulla adds that although there are POGOs in Cavite, he says these companies do not have any transactions with the local government. He says the LGU is also not earning from POGOs.
Ang taxes paid nila diretso rin sa PAGCOR. Wala silang permits galing sa provincial government. Wala silang clearances, wala silang letter of no objection galing sa provincial government. But if they ask us to inspect, then we will accompany the PNP and the CIDG or the NBI para inspect lang.
Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro now says the prevalence of illegal POGOs is a national security concern. He says we should stop the syndicated criminal activities operating out of our base, which weakens our financial standing and corrupts our society. But Teodoro emphasized that there are POGOs operating legally as well. In Congress, there is growing momentum for a bill to ban all POGOs outright, even the legal ones. For News 5, Rainiel Pawid, we are One News.
Let's dig deeper into the matter with Jun Alano, PAGCOR's Assistant Vice President for External Communications. Magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi po, Ma'am Gretchen, Ma'am... ano nga po?
Regina and Shawn. Oo. Jun, okay, unang-una, PAGCOR as gaming regulator is being tagged as the one responsible for the crackdown on illegal POGOs. Maaari po ba kaming malinawan dito? Ano po ba ang proseso sakasakaling kayo po ay nakahuli ng illegal na POGO? May listahan po kayo dyan o may nag-report po sa inyo. How does the whole process go from the reports to the actual search warrant and inspections?
We actually don't receive reports from the public, and that's what we really want. The process is that when we ourselves in PAGCOR have a security cluster, and we have monitoring teams, and we generate intelligence reports, and these are passed on to our law enforcement agencies. Remember, PAGCOR has no police power, so we need to partner with law enforcement agencies to crack down and go against these syndicates that are operating underground.
Yung PAOK po, ano po ang role nila in the whole scheme of things?
They are the lead in the because they are composed of several teams, and but of course the main forces still come from the PNP, and then there's the DOJ is there, of course the DILG itself, and then we at PAGCOR provide information, especially with regards to our previous licensees who have since ceased legal operations and have gone into illegal activities. So it's PAOK right now that's currently in the lead.
Yun nga po, no, June, kasi yun yung issue, right? We do have the POGOs na merong lisensya under ng PAGCOR. Meron din yung mga wala. Doon tayo nagkakaproblema, I think, mostly doon sa mga wala. We have been talking to the PNP also, and we keep asking them kung ano po ba yung magyayari. But what they say is they can only act if mag-request ang PAGCOR bilang kayo ang regulator. They can also act upon it kung may nabalitaang or may nag-report din na may criminal activity not related to POGO. To POGO operations rather. So, medyo magulo po. Sa ngayon po ba, ano po ang stance ng PAGCOR with regard to POGOs, licensed or unlicensed? Are you in favor of a blanket ban on all operations? Where does the PAGCOR stand on this now? No, since 2018, I believe, nagbigay ng mga lisensya. It's been about 6 years. Nagbago na po ba ang ihip ng hangin?
Yes. The licenses were issued starting in 2016. And then by the time the COVID pandemic rolled in, we were already getting reports about illegal activities, illicit activities, kidnappings. And then, and so when we came in, the new administration came in 2022, we immediately conducted a thorough review of what's going on, and then we started suspending some licenses. And then by 2023, last August, we really started trimming down the number of operators with license. So we put them on notice. We put all licensees. At the time, there were 298, so close to 300 licensees. So we put them all under probation, and then asked them to reapply. So during the reapplication, that's where we started weeding out. Some of them never applied anymore. A few, some of the others were denied because they couldn't meet the criteria and the new requirements. And then it resulted in a drastic drop in our licensees. From 298, there were only 49 left.
Ano po
So
yung,
that's what we consider as our licensees. The rest, we consider them as plain criminal syndicates.
Sir, ano
Like,
po
but what
yung
happens to them though after? Like, so mas marami na ngayon na unlicensed. Is there some sort of cleanup job after where, okay, tinanggalan natin to ng lisensya, what then happens to them? Is there an agency in charge of checking kung nandito pa rin sila nung ginagawa nila? Did they vacate the Philippines? What happens?
That's one big problem. Of course, they vacated the premises because part of their license is that they have registered places of business. So once their contracts are out, then they terminated also their leases. And then, but we don't know really what happened, whether they all went back to their countries of origin. But we suspect that a lot of them stayed and then went underground. Of course, they have already their equipment, their computers, their machines. So they would just move to another place which is not known to us, and then started operating illegally. In the process, they engaged already in various activities like cyber scam, hacking. What we've seen thus far, those are the activities that they've engaged in since they lost their licenses. So when we are calling for, outlawing all the legal licensees that are remaining, they would probably do the same, just vanish, hide, go underground, but they would still continue. And what's going to happen is that we lose the revenues, we lose the control, we would lose the ability to monitor them closely. So we should consider that.
Okay, sir, ano po yung kaklaruhin ko lang po yung sinabi ninyo na may new requirement po kayo for the issuance of of the license again. What's the difference in the past and the regulation now? Is it more because of the crimes that are happening inside the POGOs, or meron pa pong ibang I guess safety measures, safeguards that you put in place?
Yes. During as I mentioned earlier, in August and September, when we cracked down, we introduced new requirements. Like we asked them really we tried to really check on the beneficial ownerships of these applicants, because we noticed that there are interlocking and interconnected officers between one applicant and the other. So we really determined who are the beneficial owners of this. And then we also increased the bonds so that if they do something wrong, then we can just forfeit their bonds. Another one is we introduced a probity check. So we really went through each and every application so that a lot of them did not qualify, and that's what happened. They failed their application, so they were never given a renewal.
PAGCOR CEO Al Tenco already issued a statement on this. He said he's not for an outright ban on all POGOs in the country. He said that would cause more problems than it solves. He says we could potentially be losing 20 billion pesos. So that's much bigger number than the 5 billion pesos in revenue that was originally being thrown about. Put that into context for us. Where did that 20 billion come from?
Okay. The 5 billion original came from the share of PAGCOR from the gross gaming revenues, which was 2%. It's still 2%. But we should factor also that for every 2% that PAGCOR collects, the BIR gets another 5%. So if you multiply a 5 billion by 2.5, then you get something like another 12 or 13 billion. So it's gonna be close to 20 billion when you total it. We're not even talking about the jobs generated for locals and the service providers, and then the peripheral beneficiaries, security guards, those people who are renting out their homes, food providers, transport providers.
And that
So that's the ecosystem of the financial benefits from the legitimate internet gaming licenses.
so around 20 billion, that's just coming from legitimate operations.
Just to cross-check
Yes.
also, because I think Mr. Tenko also was in the House maybe 2 months ago in Congress. Ang sinabi niya po ay 5 to 6% of PAGCOR revenues comes from, of course, the legitimate POGOs. Is that still accurate?
It's somewhere there, but the percentage fluctuates because sometimes some segments of our operations generate more, so it impacts the percentage of the other segments. For example, online games are on the rise, so if it eats up, if it rises further, then it reduces the shares of the other segments. So it fluctuates, but not much.
If there is an outright ban on all POGOs in the country, and there is momentum for that bill in Congress right now, if there is a ban imposed, what effect will that have on your contribution to social services in the country?
Well, it won't, perhaps not much in terms of our contribution, but we're more worried about the jobs that are gonna go out the window, because we're talking about 36,000 people directly employed because of the internet gaming licenses. We have here BPOs who are considered as service providers, IT, technical staff. So, and these are Filipinos. These are Filipino jobs.
Jun, according to your intelligence operations, let's just finalize the numbers. You said 49 have licenses. Ilan po ang nasa listahan radar po ninyo na illegal?
No, that was the 49 was after we cleaned up. Currently, we only have 46 in the list, but 3 are suspended. So we only have 43 active IGL licenses right now.
Sa illegal po, meron po ba tayong numero doon?
We can only
Like a
assume that a lot of those who were not given licenses in 2023 would have either gone home or gone underground. So because remember, these people are no longer welcome in their own countries.
Gaano po karami yun, sir?
So,
Gaano po karami yung hindi na-renew?
well, from 298, so, and reduced to 49, so 100, almost 150, 149 something.
And I know after di nyo i-renew at bigyan ng bagong lisensya din, of course, officially, they're not anymore under PAGCOR's umbrella and under PAGCOR's regulatory umbrella.
No more.
Oo nga eh.
We don't even call them POGOs.
Right. So ano pong nagyayari sa kanila? So it becomes, parang kumbaga na-absorb na lang sila ng society, kung saan sila magtago, and then becomes a law enforcement issue. Tama po ba?
It becomes a law enforcement problem. Like, recently, there were several Chinese who were arrested in Parañaque. They're already engaged in retail without licenses, without permits. Perhaps those are the ones that are trying to survive. But you can just imagine the others. They would have been easily absorbed by the previous illegitimate operators, criminal syndicates. They would be much welcome there. And if you don't have a choice, then you will seek refuge there, work for them. So it becomes a sinister pattern of, we're driving them away, we're driving them underground, and we lose the control, we lose the ability to monitor them. And then, of course, the worst is we lose the revenues.
All right, thank you so much for speaking for PAGCOR tonight and joining us, sharing us with those details. I'm sure it's not the end of it. We hope to have again Jun Alano, Assistant Vice President for External Communications.
All right, ang bigat ng POGO topic, but let's circle back to Independence Day for our big picture tonight. Okay, let's roll that. Our big picture tonight is this artwork by Filipino graphic artist Arnold Are. The image posted on Arnold's Facebook account pays tribute to our brave fisher folk who are at the front lines in the fight to assert our territorial claims in the West Philippine Sea. This Independence Day post already has over 11,000 likes and more than 14,000 shares on Facebook.
It's so nice.
Alala ko yung trip namin to Baho de Masinloc, yung mga mangingisda.
Or yung kanina, yung,
And also,
yung
don't forget
documentary
the
of
documentary
Goyo.
of Goyo. Tonight, it aired.
At
But I'm sure they'll
6:15.
replay it as well.
Oo nga, hindi ko tuloy
Malamang nasa YouTube yun. One News, One PH. Voyage to
Voyage
Scarborough.
to Scarborough, that's right.
Yeah,
He spent 4 days at the Baho de Masinloc.
Interesting episode tonight. I mean, we're talking about Philippine Independence Day, but we see the Chinese ambassador in Malacanang, tapos may POGO, tapos may military din sa loob na EEZ natin.
Not that we're tying all of them together.
Yeah. Pero I think the point din ni Gretchen is we were expecting to cover, di ba, may Bini concert sa Luneta. Hindi na natin na-cover yun dahil it was kind of a heavy news day for a holiday. You gotta admit.
Ito naman. Pero walang traffic sa labas.
Yes. On that note, that's it for the big story
May good
tonight.
news tayo.
Oh,
so no
Walang
traffic.
traffic.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.